Oh my god, you're still here? I thought I was cancelled. Well, I guess I could tell you about my June wrap up if you really wanted to know. Because I didn't have a video prepared because I thought I was cancelled. So if you enjoy this video, I guess that you could subscribe. Because you see, I don't have any friends. So I really need subscribers. Because everyone hates me. So please subscribe. And leave a like. The first book that I read in June was White Rage by Dr. Carol Anderson, and this was the first non-fiction I have ever read, and it was about how in America, every single time Black Americans have tried to get a step ahead, white people have pushed them back down again. And it was really interesting. I am not used to non-fictions. This was the first one I'd ever read. So because I wasn't used to it, it was hard sometimes to kind of get through it. Just like I found it very dense at points. It really went into depth on like some specific laws, and you kind of had to have a base knowledge of the American legal and political systems, which I kind of do, but at the same time it was like sometimes it was too much information about some things and then other times not enough about others. But overall it was like a really useful, interesting book. It did go into a lot of detail on different events throughout history, and I already knew like little things about most of them, but like I said, I went into more depth with them all. So overall, I would really recommend it for a non-fiction about, you know, racism and the Black experience in the USA. I just personally struggled with it as it was a non-fiction and I'm not used to that kind of format. Next, I read The Poppy War by R.F. Kuang, and this is a fantasy book inspired by mid-20th century China and their war with Japan around the 1940s at the same time as World War II was going on. It follows Rin, who is a student at a military school, a very prestigious one, and she then joins the army to fight in the war, the Poppy War, like the title. And Rin has magical abilities that she kind of has to learn how to use. I really, really liked this. It was really good. The school setting of the first kind of 1/3, I didn't love that part of it. But once we got out of the school, it had me hooked. There was a battle around the end from the school section into the war section. There's like a big battle, and it was amazing. It was so well written. I could literally picture every single little thing that was happening. Like, it was just written like so perfectly. One of the best written like battle war scenes I've ever read, I think. Rin is a really interesting main character. She isn't motivated by, you know, peace and justice like most protagonists. She's basically fueled by anger and revenge. So that means that she's not always the most likable person, and in fact she does some things which are very not likable to put it, I don't know how to phrase it without spoilers, but yeah, she does some problematic things, and you know, she is a really, really interesting character to follow. There are trigger warnings in this book for literally everything. It's a gory war book, so if you need them, look it up. But pretty much anything that I can imagine anyone needing a trigger warning for happens in this book. But overall, I loved it and I was really happy with it. I really liked it. Next, I read The Black Tides of Heaven by J.Y. Yang, and this is another Asian fantasy about two twins, one of whom can see the future. They're both children of the Empress, and one of the twins ends up joining a rebellion to end his mother's reign. The writing in this book, so it's a novella, the writing was beautiful. I loved the way the author described things and just the writing style in general. It was really well written and it flowed really well. However, the story itself felt disjointed at times, and I think this is mostly just down to the fact that it was a novella, so it was much shorter page-wise. I think it was like 200 pages. So there was a lot of time jumps because you start off with the twins as like really young kids, and then I think by the end they're like in their 30s or like late 20s, and it just meant that the relationships, the twins' relationship to each other was well developed, but the other relationships, like their romantic relationships, just wasn't well developed at all. And you just kind of were told like, okay, now he's with her and she's with him, and then like you kind of just have to go along with it. Which, I mean, is fine, but it means you weren't really that invested in these other characters. You only really cared about the twins, and even then, just the main twin, the one that joins the rebellion. So, if this was a novel instead of a novella, it would have been much better because the author could have so much more time to explore the relationships and things like that. However, as a novella, I think it didn't perfectly hit the mark. But the author themselves, like, was really, like, their writing was really good. And I do just think that the only issue was because it was down to the fact that it was a novella instead of a novel. Life and Death, Twilight Reimagined is a book by Stephanie Meyer, released on the 10th anniversary of the original Twilight book coming out, and it is essentially Twilight rewritten, but all of the characters' genders are swapped. So Bella is now a boy called Bo, and Edward is now a girl called Edith. And I was going into this like not expecting to love it as much as I did. I knew I would enjoy it, but I honestly, like, I was really shocked and surprised at how much I liked it. It starts off basically as like a copy paste of Twilight, and it does feel like that for a while. It feels like she's copy and pasted the book and like changed the names and like changed a couple words. But there are some like really big differences, especially like when you get to the end. The ending is completely like 180 different, like completely different. It actually like shocked me. After I read this book, I had to spend like 30 minutes to an hour just like kind of sitting, like processing it, and I was like, oh my god, like she did that. And I really loved it. I thought it was really fun. I really like the new characters as well. It takes a little second for your brain to kind of like stop thinking, because you just want to think Bo, Bella, like you kind of just do it in your head automatically. But once you kind of get over that and just kind of accept them as new characters, it actually is really fun. I like Bo. He was basically living my dream life of, you know, being the new kid in school, and like the hottest girl in school happens to fall in love with him, and she's a vampire. Like it was just like my dream, and it was really fun. Edith as well was really interesting, and I also think that it really brings up a lot of interesting conversations about how we view gender dynamics and relationships and things like that. One thing that stood out to me as being strange in this version. So in original Twilight, Bella is 17 and Jacob is 15, and because she is older and she's the girl, you don't really think about it that much. However, in this one, when it's switched, and I can't remember the new name for Jacob, but the girl version of Jacob is 15, and then Bo is 17. It's like, oh, it's a bit strange. Whereas in reality, they should be treated the exact same. Like either they're both strange or they're both fine. So I just thought it was something interesting. But yeah, I actually really enjoyed it, and I thought it was really fun. And the ending, like, the ending was so good. The Professor by Charlotte Bronte. This was Charlotte Bronte's first novel. It was never officially published during her lifetime. It was published after she died. And it follows a professor in a school in Belgium who falls in love with another teacher there. Many elements of this story were taken and adapted into Villette, which if you watched last month's wrap up, you'll know that I did not like. I thought it was really boring, to be honest. And I actually really preferred The Professor, and I think it's mostly down to the length. Villette was over 500 pages. I'm sure The Professor was like 200 and something. So it's kind of the same story, but much more condensed. And I liked it much more. It was much shorter, obviously, and it was much more just to the point. Villette just like went off in a lot of different tangents. Like I said, there was a lot of like religious talk and stuff in Villette, and these conversations like came up a little bit in this, but they never went on for as long as they did in Villette, and they never like bogged down the story or the book the same way that they did in Villette. So essentially this is the same story, but from the male's point of view, and just much more condensed, and I really preferred it, if I'm honest. A lot of people will say that Villette is better written, as in like the actual craft of writing, but I don't think it's a better book. I think it's just too long, and The Professor's same story, but it's more condensed. Trainspotting by Irvine Welsh is a book about heroin addicts in Edinburgh in Scotland in the late 1980s, and it follows their lives doing drugs, doing crimes to get money for drugs, and just all around being not the nice people, and it follows their relationships to each other in this kind of drug addicted circle. It's technically lots of different short stories, but they're so interconnected that it doesn't really read like short stories. It reads more just like changing perspectives as the chapters go on. Most of them are written in Scots language or dialect, and this was really unique, and I didn't find it that hard to follow. It obviously took me a little extra second to process as compared to a normal English written book, but obviously I understood what they were saying. I think if you were not from Scotland or the UK and you tried to read it, you might struggle a little bit at times, but it's not a bad thing. I think it just makes it really unique, and it really amplifies the story. It's really realistic, and I wouldn't let it put you off. If you think this is going to interest you, I would say just read it, and you know, the language is part of the fun. This is a really good, honest, raw portrayal of drug addiction, and it never glorifies anything. In fact, it does the exact opposite. It's really disgusting at points. A lot of bad stuff happens, like a lot of bad stuff. There are trigger warnings for this, for just about pretty much everything. Not as intense as the Poppy were, but still a lot of different trigger warnings. They are heroin addicts in the 80s, so as you can imagine, they're not the most politically correct characters. They do a lot of bad things. A lot of bad things happens to them because of their drug addiction. They say a lot of nasty, not nice things and violent things about, you know, minorities and stuff. So definitely look all of that up if you need to, but I wouldn't let it put you off. I think it's a really, really good book, and I was really glad I read it. And it was the first book in my new thing I'm trying to do of reading a Scottish book every single month. So I think it was a really good first step towards that goal. I am aware, by the way, that my lights probably aren't matching the book covers this month. I didn't look up the book covers beforehand, and some of them are in black and white. So, you know, I'm just trying to make it up as I go along. Next, we're going to talk about Divergent by Veronica Roth. This is a YA dystopian where when people turn 16, they must join one of 5 factions, which are basically just based on their biggest and most prominent personality trait. We follow Triss, who is a divergent, meaning that she doesn't fall into any of the 5 categories. And she joins Dauntless to kind of hide the fact that she's a divergent. Dauntless are the brave faction, and while she is there, she uncovers that something big is going on behind the scenes, as you can imagine, in a YA series. I seen the Divergent movie for the first time a couple months ago, so I already knew what was going to happen, but I was actually really surprised at how well written this was. I think that Roth's writing style was very engaging, and even though I knew what was happening, I still wanted to just keep reading. It had like a weird kind of addictive quality to it where the chapters end and I wanted to go to the next chapter anyway, even though I was like, I know what's going to happen, so I could stop, but I didn't want to. So I was actually pleasantly surprised. My only real issue with this book is the idea of the actual factions themselves. They are very unbelievable, in my opinion. It's kind of like you have to suspend your disbelief and just go along with the faction system and go along with the idea that most humans will fit into one of these 5 categories, which obviously humans are much more complex than that. We're not going to fit in and have these personalities that they want us to have in this. So you kind of have to ignore that. But overall, I actually was surprised at how much I enjoyed this. I wasn't planning on reading the second or the third books. I thought I'll just read this and then that's probably it. But I actually am tempted to now, although I've heard the third one's really bad. So I don't know. But anyway, it's a possibility. So my indie book for the month was Sacrificial Lamb by Ashley Nicole. I was sent a free copy of this by the author, so thank you very much for that. This book follows a college student, Katie, who and her boyfriend Scott. She reunites with her childhood best friend Matthew, who makes her cheat on her boyfriend and causes a fight between the two of them. Lots of other things happen in her life. It all kind of spirals out of control and she kills herself. Later, her boyfriend also kills himself, and then they both go to heaven. This isn't actually as religious as it seems. Obviously, it's based around religion, but it's not like a preachy religious book, if you understand what I'm going on. Like, it talks about heaven and angels and things, but it's not like a Christian book or anything. I just want to put that disclaimer out there, because I know that could turn some people off. When they get to heaven, everything seems perfect, but then they uncover some secrets and realise that everything is not as it seems. So I actually really enjoyed this more than I thought I would at first. When I first started reading it, I was like, this writing's a little too simple for me. That's not a bad thing for a lot of people. A lot of people love, you know, kind of straightforward writing. And I like kind of a balance between, I don't like too flavory, but I don't like too simple. And at first I was like, this is a little too simple. But as I read more, I actually didn't really care about that, because I actually became really engaged with the story. I really wanted to know what was happening next. And I thought it was really unique and really, even though it was simple writing, the way that the plot kind of came together, I thought it was really well written and I really enjoyed it. The characters were all very interesting. They were all very unique. All their relationships to each other made sense. At first, they seemed like they're acting a little irrationally. And this was part of my issue with the start of the book. So I was like, the writing's a little simple and these characters aren't really making sense. Like, they're kind of just acting irrationally, again, like I said. But this actually is part of the plot later on. The fact they're acting irrationally, like, it's leading to something. So stick with it. If you have that same kind of thought as me, stick with it, because it all makes sense. And my only real criticism, as I said again, the writing was a little bit straightforward at times, but that just meant that I read it faster and easier. I read this all in one day. And it's not really a bad thing having simple writing. Sometimes you just need a nice, fun, easy book to, you know, speed through. Maybe to get you out of a reading slump. See if you were trying to get out of a reading slump, I think this could be a really good book for it. Because again, you just sit and flick through it really fast. Overall, I really enjoyed it, and thank you again for the author for sending me a copy. Oh, you're back. So what have we learned today? We've learned that I had a good reading month, and that you should subscribe and leave a like and comment down below. Let me know your thoughts on any of these books. Please let me know if you have read Twilight, Life and Death, because I feel like a lot of people hate this and I loved it. So please talk to me about it down below. And don't spoil the ending in the comments, because I already know what it is. So just like make a vague reference in case anyone wants to read it, because I swear to God, that ending blew my mind. Okay, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video.